Let's start this lecture with some concepts around business continuity. It is important to note that a high priority for every organization is the ability to prevent and recover from a substantial disruption of operations and resource availability as soon as possible. The importance of planning for business continuity is evident when considering the broad range of threats to continuity. These threats can be grouped as natural disasters, system problems, cyber attacks, and human-caused disasters. Threats in the natural disaster category include accidental fire, severe natural event, accidental flood, accidental failure of air conditioning, electromagnetic radiation, and air contaminants. The second category is system problems. Threats in this category include software malfunction, equipment malfunction or failure, and breach of information system maintainability. With reference to the broader issue of business continuity, management must also be aware of threats to cyber-physical systems. The National Institute of Standards and Technology special publication defines a cyber-physical device as a device that has an element of computation and interacts with the physical world through sensing and actualization. It also defines a cyber-physical system as a smart system that includes engineered interacting networks of physical and computational components. For many organizations, it is important to consider a range of threats to the information and operational technology aspects of cyber-physical systems as they rely on such systems. In Chapter 14, we discussed the numerous technical threats to information computation technology systems, and in Chapter 15, we also discussed cyber attacks in some detail. However, threats related to cyber attacks on cyber-physical systems are beyond the scope of this class, so if you want to learn more about such attacks, please visit the National Institute of Standards and Technology's website and see their special publication for details. The last category of threats is human-caused disasters. Threats in this category include theft of equipment, deliberate fire or flood, deliberate loss of power supply, deliberate failure of air conditioning, disruption of equipment or media, unauthorized use of equipment, and finally, vandalism and explosive discharges. In essence, business continuity management is concerned with mitigating the effects of disasters. According to the ISO, there are two ways in which business continuity management achieves that mitigation. This figure here on the slide illustrates the two ways. The gray curve shows the pace of recovery from a disaster with the business continuity plan. The black curve, however, shows the typical recovery pace without business continuity plan. When a disaster occurs, the worst-case scenario is that some business processes or functions are entirely stopped. A business continuity plan is intended to handle such situation. It includes resilience properties and quick or instantaneous switchover mechanisms that mitigates the initial impact. It also requires the implementation of capabilities and procedures that result in more rapid restoration of operational capability. This figure here on the slide also shows the recovery process goes through the three overlapping stages. Organizations undertake business continuity planning to reduce the consequences of any disruptive event to a manageable level. The specific objectives of a particular organization's continuity plan may vary depending on its mission and functions, its capabilities, and its overall continuity strategy. The Federal Emergency Management Agency's continuity guidance for non-federal entities outlines the following objectives for business continuity management. The organization's resilience is directly related to the effectiveness of its business continuity capability, which rests on the four key components that are essential to managing business continuity. The first component is management. Continuity of management is critical to ensure continuity of essential functions. An organization should have a detailed contingency plan that indicates a clear line of succession, so that designated backup individuals have the authority needed to maintain continuity when key managers are unavailable. Another component is staff. There is a twofold requirement with respect to staff. First, all staff should be trained on how to maintain continuity of operations, or how to restore operations in response to an unexpected disruption. Second, the organization should develop guidelines of vertical training and cross-training so that staff can take on functions of peers and those above and below them in the reporting hierarchy as needed. Information and communication technology systems is the third component. A top priority following a disruption is communications, both internal and external. Communication systems and technology should be interoperable, robust, and reliable. Therefore, an organization should identify critical IT systems and have backup and rollover capabilities tested and in place. The final component includes the buildings where essential functions are performed. Organizations should have separate backup locations available where management and business process functions can continue during disruptions that disable the primary facility in some way. The component also covers essential equipment and utilities. An information security program consists of the management, operational, and technical aspects of protecting information and information systems. It includes policies, procedures, and management structure and mechanisms for coordinating security activities. A business continuity program also involves these considerations. Business continuous governance is concerned with establishing and maintaining management structures and processes that provides a framework for maintaining business continuity in response to major security incidents and disasters. A typical process for establishing business continuity governance includes the following tasks, here listed on the slide. Systems requirements, functions, and interdependencies are used to characterize systems continuity requirements and priorities in the event of a significant disruption. A business impact analysis helps identify and prioritize information systems and components that are critical to supporting the organization's mission and business processes. A typical business impact analysis includes the following steps listed here on this slide. The results of a business impact analysis is to identify time-sensitive processes and the requirements to recover them in the time frame that is acceptable to the entity. An organization needs to perform a risk analysis on each critical process to identify any vulnerabilities that exist, along with steps to mitigate these vulnerabilities. In Chapter 3, we discussed the process in detail for security management, and the same process applies for business continuity. In essence, business continuity risk assessment addresses the three questions. What can go wrong? What is the likelihood that some undesired event might occur? And what would be the impact should it occur? Federal Emergency Management Agency's continuity guidance for non-federal entities defines the following four critical steps in risk assessment process. First is inventory the essential functions provided by the organization. Second, identify the threats that can impact delivery of essential functions. Third, develop continuity hazard scenarios. And finally, identify existing safeguards and countermeasures. A business continuity strategy is a conceptual summary of preventative and recovery strategies that must be carried out between the occurrence of a disaster and the time when normal operations are restored. The design of a business continuity strategy involves understanding the requirements gathered during the business impact analysis and risk assessment and effectively translating them into actionable strategies. Furthermore, it involves considering the cost and benefit of any proposed strategy. This figure here on the slide illustrates the type of trade-off that management needs to consider when designing business continuity strategy. The cost of disruption derives from the business impact analysis and risk assessment. The cost of resources is related to implementing a business continuity program against the disruption. Typically, the longer a disruption continues, the more costly it becomes for the organization. Also, the shorter the recovery time is, the more costs are incurred. The business continuity strategy is a higher strategic level overall guidance and does not provide specific security controls. The ISO divides business continuity strategy into three categories. The first category is determining possible business continuity strategies based on business impact analysis and risk assessment. The ISO calls out 3 areas to be considered in developing the strategy. These areas include: first, protecting prioritized activities; second, stabilizing, continuing, resuming, and recovering prioritized activities and their dependencies and supporting resources; and finally, mitigating and responding to impacts. And the second category is resource requirements. The purpose of this category is to determine the resource necessary to implement each of the business continuity strategy categories. The ISO lists the following types of resources to be considered, and they're listed here on this slide. And the last category is protection and mitigation. According to the ISO, it is referred as part of developing a strategy. This category is best viewed as a climax of developing a strategy. In general, those involved in developing the business continuity strategy submit the strategy operations and recommendations to management for feedback, selection, and approval. The management then performs the cost and benefit analysis to determine the optimal strategies based on the requirements and operations risk appetite.